this chapter, we've created a pivot chart dashboard. We've done this by creating 3 different pivot tables, one for a top 5 channel partner, which you can see in here. And then we've created the pivot chart and cut and pasted it into here. The same thing for the number of sales group. We create another pivot table and a pivot chart. We've cut it out and put it in here. And the same thing for the sales and cost per month. We have a separate pivot table. We create a pivot chart and then we've placed it in here. What we've also done is inserted 4 different slices and we've connected them. And by choosing the different years, the pivot charts change automatically. So you get a nice looking dashboard with lots of metrics. You can choose the different months. You can also choose the different regions. Let's highlight everything again. And you can also choose the different sales ranges. With this dashboard, you are sure to wow your boss and get noticed. And I'll show you how to do this in a few steps. So this is our data set that we've been using, and we have all the different information here with the channel partners, the sales, the different regions, salesperson, and so forth. So now we're going to create 3 different pivot tables, and from there we're going to create 3 separate pivot charts. One for the top 5 channel partners, the next one for the different sales groups, and the last one for sales and costs. So let's go to the first one and create the top 5 channel partners. Let's go to insert pivot table and put into a new worksheet. So let's get our channel partners and put into the row labels. We'll get our sales and drop it into the values. So we have our pivot table here. Now, first of all, let's right click in the values and we'll sort it from largest to smallest. And from the drop down box, let's go to value filters and we'll do the top 5. So let's put in the top 5 items and press OK. So we have our top 5 channel partners. Now let's go to options and pivot chart and insert a pivot chart from in here. And let's choose a bar and press OK. Now let's just make some changes. Let's get rid of these buttons by right clicking in there. And let's get rid of the total there. Click and press delete. Let's go to design and let's choose this here with a white outline. And click on the grid lines and press delete. Now let's click on the y-axis and go to home and let's put in a dark font in there. And from in here, we can delete that because we don't want it. Now, let's click once in your graph and right click and let's add some data labels in there. Now we can color them in. Let's put it into a blue there and then press Ctrl 1 and the number, let's put in 1,000 separator and 0 decimal places. In the title, let's double click in there and change the name to top 5 channel partners. And double click to highlight and let's put it into a dark gray there. Okay, now let's right click in the chart and then let's fill it in with a light gray background. And again, within the graph, click on there, right click, and once again, let's fill it with a light gray. Now let's click on the edges and then press Ctrl 1 and the border color, we'll do a solid line and we'll have a white border. And the border style, we can just put in number 5 and let's make it round corners in here and press OK. So you see our chart is taking shape. Now we're going to use this similar format for the other charts. So all we can do now is save this template, and then when we create the next pivot chart, we can apply this different format so we don't have to go through all the steps again. So once you click on your chart, go to design and save template as. You get this directory here and it goes to Microsoft Templates and Charts. And in here you can save your chart. And let's call it dashboard chart and press save. Okay, so we created our first chart. While it's clicked, press Ctrl X, go to our dashboard, click anywhere in there and press Ctrl V. So this is our first chart in there. And let's just put it just like that, and we can reorganize that later. So let's go to our data table and create a second pivot table and pivot chart, which is going to be sales groups. So go to Insert, Pivot Table, New Worksheet. In here, we're going to put in the sales in our row labels. And from in here, right click and press Group. And once you group it into ranges starting from 10,000 all the way to 100,000. And then the increase will be 10,000. We'll leave it like that and press OK. Now again, get the sales and drop it into the values area. And because we've grouped the sales, we automatically get a count of sales. And leave it like that. That's fine because that's what we want to use. Now let's include in there a pivot chart. Click the pivot chart. And we're going to use a column and press OK. Now let's go to the change chart type, and in our templates, let's get the previous template that we created, which is this one here called dashboard chart. Click on it and press OK. So you see we get the format as we had before, but now we can just right click in there and again change chart type, and let's put it into a column and press OK. So we've got the same format, but we have the different chart type. Now in here, let's double click and rename this to number of sales per group. You can name it whatever you like. And let's put that in gray. Okay, let's click on the chart, press Ctrl X and go to our dashboard, click anywhere in here, and press Ctrl V. And we can just bring it all the way up here. And you see now we have our second pivot chart in there. Let's go back to our data table, and we're going to create a final pivot chart for sales and costs. Go to Insert, Pivot Table and press OK. In our row labels, we're going to put the financial year and the sales month. In the values, we're going to put in there the sales and then the costs. Now, we get a count of sales because before we grouped our sales. So once we group our sales, the next time we create a pivot table, we get a count of sales, but that's okay. From the drop down arrow, go to Value Fill Settings and choose Sum. Let's go to our pivot chart and insert a column chart and press OK. And let's get rid of the buttons there. Now we're not going to use the same chart style as before, because if we do that, it'll mess things up and it won't look good. So let's go back and I'll show you how it's done and press OK. It just doesn't make it nice. So let's press Ctrl Z and get out of that. And now we're just going to manually make some updates here. So we have our sales and our costs here. I want to put our costs as a line on the secondary axis here on the right hand side. So to do that, we've clicked in our sum of costs, which are in red, press Ctrl 1 and then plot series on, put secondary axis and press close, and then change chart type and let's put in a line and press OK. So now we have the two charts on different axes. So the sales are in blue and they're depicted on the left hand side axis here. So let's put in a blue color there to distinguish it. Like this, press Ctrl 1, number, and we can just put it like that. Now on the right hand side, we have our sum of costs. So let's click on that and then let's put in a red color there. And again, Ctrl 1 and let's format the number. Now let's click on layout and go to axis titles, the primary vertical axis. Let's choose that and we can put in there sales. We can right click in there and just put it in a blue color. Now let's go again to the axis titles and go to the secondary vertical axis title, just like that, and put in that cost just to distinguish it. And let's put that in red. Let's click in there and press Ctrl 1 and we can move the legend to the bottom and press close. Now let's click on our grids there and we can delete that. Let's click in our axis there and put in a blue color. And now let's click in our line and press Ctrl 1 and the line color, let's put it into this light red color. And then the marker options, let's put in a circle. And the marker fill, again, we just put it in like that, into a light red color, and press OK. Let's go on to our layout and put in a chart title. Choose above chart, and then double click in there, and we're going to call it sales and costs per month. Then double click in there, and we'll put into a grey color. Okay, now let's put in a grey background for our graph. Just click anywhere in there, right click, and then in here we choose a slight grey, then click within the graph, and you can press F4 and it will repeat the last action. So we have our graph there, and now one last step is to put in a border. Click on the border, press Ctrl 1. The border color will put in a white color, and the border style will make it a bit thick, number 5, and then pull round corners and press close. So we have our chart there, and now all we're going to do is just click on it, press Ctrl X and Ctrl V, and we have it there. And we can just resize it just to make it a little bit bigger. Okay, so now let's just double click in the home tab just to get a bit more space so we can see that. So we have our 3 different pivot charts there that were created from the 3 separate pivot tables. Now the final thing we need to do is insert slices and then connect them. So every time we change the slicer, the 3 pivot charts are in sync. So to do that, we can simply click on any chart. So let's go Analyze and Insert Slicer, and let's put in there the financial year, the sales month, the sales region, and the sales, and press OK. So we have our 4 different slices there. So let's grab the financial year and bring it up here, and we'll just make some adjustments to it. Let's put it into 3 different columns, and then let's make it dark, and we can move it like this. Right click and slicer settings, get rid of the display header. Let's make the height for the buttons a little bit bigger. So we have 1 slicer there. Let's grab our sales month, and again right click just to get rid of the header, and from the options let's put into 3 different columns that shows the different quarters, and then we can just resize it in here just like that. And then once again, let's make the buttons a little bit bigger, and then we can put in there a dark color. The next one are the sales regions. Let's grab it in here, get rid of the display header, and then let's put it into 2 different columns and resize it accordingly. And again, let's make this a little bit, the buttons a little bit bigger. We can put in a different color if we like, just to distinguish it. And finally, we have our sales. Now they're grouped into the different ranges. Let's get rid of the header, and then let's put it into separate groups. Then again, resize this, and we can make it a little bit bigger again. And let's drop it into 2 columns just so we can see that better. Okay, all the way to the bottom there, and then the color. Let's choose that. Let's click on the different slices, press Ctrl key and click on all of them just to align them. Go to Align, we can say Align Center. Now we need to connect the slices, because if we choose one slicer, it's only gonna change the bottom one, because that's a chart that we chose to insert the slicer. So let's right click in each of the slices and go to Pivot Table Connections, and let's tick on the empty boxes. So what we're doing here is we're saying that pivot table number 3 in sheet 2 and pivot table number 2 in sheet 1 are being connected. Press OK. The same thing for all of them. If we choose 2012, the chart changes, 2013 and 2014. Same thing for the months. Let's highlight all of them like that. And then we have the different regions. And also we have the different sales ranges there as well. Now, if you see there, we've got the different sales ranges. If we go to our first sheet, we can see the different sales ranges. So as we choose that, it changes the pivot table accordingly. So this gets updated, even though you don't see it, it's on another sheet, it gets filtered accordingly. Let's go back in here. Now, let's highlight everything just by holding down the mouse and selecting it all. So you can see we've created a pretty impressive dashboard in just a few steps. And I'm sure that with this dashboard, you're going to get noticed by the next round of promotions. I'm sure that your name will be mentioned.